just been to see Aladdin with my 11-year-old niece, who really enjoyed it. And funnily enough, that was around about the age I would have been when I saw the original cartoon version, when my gran took me to see it. So quite fitting. And my niece had seen the cartoon version, liked it, and she also liked this one. So there's a bit of a feedback in terms of any youngsters, what the youth might think of the movie. Incidentally, also my mum and dad have been to see this, and they'd never seen the original Aladdin because it was my gran that took us to the cinema when we were kids, and they really enjoyed it as well, and I really enjoyed it as well. So this movie is a hit. I thought Will Smith's character might have been a little bit more overpowering, you know, all about Will Smith. You know, the genie in the original cartoon was a huge character with Robin Williams casting the voice. But Will Smith, he was good in this, but he wasn't like trying to be, the movie wasn't all about Will Smith. And for me, that's a good thing. I didn't want the movie to be all about Will Smith. So this just worked. I'm surprised. So recently I've seen Dumbo and Mary Poppins, which in my mind are both what I would class as remakes, even though Mary Poppins was a sequel, a follow-up. I actually more or less consider it to be a remake. It was the same movie, just with slightly different scenes, slightly different characters, that's all. And I wasn't a fan of either. I didn't mind Dumbo, but, you know, for me it was just not a fan really. Didn't really work. But Aladdin was brilliant. I think I gave Dumbo 6.5 out of 10. I'd have to give you, I'm pushing towards 8.5 for Aladdin. I mean, I was desperate for the loo halfway through, which, you know, spoilt my enjoyment a little bit, but it just goes to show that I didn't want to miss any of the movie by going to the toilet. So that obviously shows how much I was enjoying it. And on the whole, I'm going to give this an 8.3 out of 10. That's what it's going to get. 8.3 out of 10. So here's some of the key elements. Okay, firstly, it's a musical, arguably, but then again not. Okay, so some people would say that this movie is a musical. I hate musicals. If I want to see a musical, I'd go to a live gig and just watch them play music. Not a fan of musicals at all, but this worked so well. This, you know, I could understand you calling this a musical. There's constantly songs being played throughout, but it was fine. It didn't bother me at all. And I think what worked so well in regard to it being a musical is the fact that each song was only sang for maybe about a minute, or at least it only felt like it was about a minute. The songs didn't drag on and on and on, you know, in some really annoying long song. It was just reasonably short, you know, to the point, and yeah, it didn't get to the point where it was boring or cringeworthy. Now, regarding the music, I personally think the music from the Aladdin is amazing, and as you're watching the movie, I haven't seen Aladdin since I was a kid, so it must be like 25 years or something since I've seen Aladdin. And you realise all the tunes, you thought, oh my god, I actually know the lyrics of this, even though I haven't heard this song for years. You realise how well you knew the songs, and that's because the original theme music, you know, the original soundtrack to Aladdin is phenomenal. I think that's what makes a good movie, especially when you're a kid, a good soundtrack. And they've kept basically all of the songs in this movie, but what they have done is added a couple of extras. So it's fantastic getting to see the original songs be sung, but it also works really well in terms of the new songs that they've added in. Like Jasmine, the female character, had a couple of her own new songs that they'd added in, and even though I'd never heard them before, they were fine. It was okay. I can't say I fell in love with them straight away, but they were okay. The lyrics were decent. You could understand why they'd made these songs, that it made a lot of sense to add these new songs to the female character. The lyrics sounded really good, and the tune was okay, and they didn't drag on for ages and ages and ages. And they actually added to the storyline as well. So, you know, it was a huge hit in terms of the songs that were being played. It was an absolute huge hit. Now, in terms of my tips for getting the most out of this movie, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to watch the first Aladdin before this new one comes out, but it's never got a chance to, never got round to it. And do you know what? I'm glad I didn't. Whatever you do, don't watch the original Aladdin before watching this movie. My advice would be, if you see this movie as a standalone, like say you've never seen Aladdin period, then like for instance my mum and dad, I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of this movie because it's a cracker of a storyline, you know? It's a brilliant storyline. You've got a genie, magic, wishes, you know, adventure, kingdoms, princesses, you know, it's brilliant. So if you don't know the story, you're really going to enjoy seeing it develop and not knowing what's going on. So if, like me, you have seen the original cartoon and you absolutely loved it, Aladdin was one of my favourites, definitely. Because I hadn't seen it for so long, my memory was just vague enough that as things were happening, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this bit, but I didn't really have it on my mind until it got to that moment in the movie, if you know what I'm saying. So in other words, it felt like I was going on a journey of adventure into the unknown with this movie, just like you would hope with any movie that you've never seen before. So even though it was a remake, because it's so long since the original, unless you've got kids and you've been watching them recently, which I don't, you know, I think it really works for somebody who absolutely loved the original cartoon but hasn't seen it for a while. I was very apprehensive before watching this movie. I was like, oh, why are they making Aladdin? You know, I loved Aladdin. It was my favourite movie, and now you're going to remake it and you're going to ruin it. You can never make it as good. You're just going to spoil it. Not at all. I mean, on the whole, you know, Dumbo and all these that have been coming out recently, I'm not so sure they all work, but this particular one really worked. I loved it. All I can say is I hope The Lion King does as good a job, because The Lion King is literally my all-time favourite kids movie. So yeah, good luck, Lion King. Hope it's brilliant. But this particularly really worked. So you know my tips in terms of getting the most out of this. Don't feel the need to watch the original cartoon. It works for anybody, whether you've seen the original cartoon or not, whether you go with kids or not. My mum and dad went with a couple of their friends, and they're all fully grown adults without kids, and they all really enjoyed it. So this is a movie for absolutely everybody. It works with kids, it works without kids, it works if you've seen and loved the original Aladdin, and it works if you haven't. This is an absolute cracker of a movie. Must see at the cinema. It's good value. It's on for 2 hours and 10 minutes. Didn't feel like it dragged at all. You know, so it's a good value piece of cinema going. So in other words, one that you absolutely have to go to the cinema to see. This is totally worth paying to see it at the cinema. I would probably quite happily wait until your Tuesdays or your Wednesdays, you know, go on your buy one get one free nights, rather than, you know, feeling like you have to go and see it on a weekend and pay full price. I'm not saying don't try and see it cheaply, but do definitely go to the cinema to see this one. Definitely worth it. Yeah, brilliant cinema experience. Excellent movie. It's made for the cinema. The colours and everything like that in the movie are spectacular, sensational colours, just like the original Aladdin. That was full of colours, and it was really visually fantastic. And that is exactly what they managed to achieve in this movie as well. The colours and everything, they really managed to get it into the movie. And yeah, it's a really good tribute to the original film, made not in cartoon version, and it works. It really does. Like I say, love the colours as well. So yeah, this is a cracker, one to absolutely go to the cinema to see. So I've given it my rating. You know, you have to go to the cinema to see it. It's definitely worth seeing. Sit round about middle of the auditorium, because the volume, the audio will be at its best if you're in the middle somewhere. Yeah, sit in the centre of the auditorium. Best for visualisation, because the visuals are fantastic. So you want to be close enough to get immersed without being too close, and you don't want to be too far away. And also the audio is really impressive as well. But you need to be sat in the centre. We were slightly to the right hand side, and the audio wasn't as good as it could have been. So sit dead centre in the auditorium for this one. And I think that pretty much covers everything. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this movie as much as I did. Go see it. It's a cracker. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next review.